Welcome back. South Floridians came out in droves to vote for this year's election, and how they voted spoke volumes. So now that we know the results, both locally and nationally, we asked Doug Lyons of the Sun-Sentinel what those results will mean to you. All right, Doug, another election, another Florida bit of controversy in the news. Why can't our beloved state seem to get this process right? It doesn't seem to be that difficult of a process to tabulate votes.
Well, wait a minute, let me be fair about it. I mean, running an election is a little more complicated than it appears from the outside. I mean, you got to come up with poll workers, poll watchers, you got to come up with the machines, you got to make sure they're all calibrated, you got to make sure the ballots are printed properly and done in a timely fashion before the elections. You got to move all this stuff out to various sites. If there's any process where stuff can go wrong, this is it. And unfortunately, Florida has shown, again, that stuff can go wrong.
But the other 49 states do a very similar process, and are they just doing it better than us?
Could be, could be. I mean, yeah, and who knows? I mean, the thing is, there are election supervisors across the country who are probably looking at Florida and say, "There, for the grace of God, go I." You know, close elections or big turnouts can prompt problems, and God bless the other states and other local elections officials who managed to get by without being pulled into the public spotlight like their counterparts down here in South Florida. I mean, I hate to say stuff happens. It's a little deeper than that. I mean, Florida has been trying to fix its voting problems since 2000. In 12 years, we still haven't gotten it right.
Well, the good news is we have 4 more years before we have to worry about it again.
Yeah. But I mean, must we go through being another national embarrassment for you know, in 2016? I hope not. It would be nice if the Florida legislature, you know, came up with, you know, the resources to help local officials in the state actually conduct elections without problems. I don't see that happening. It would be nice if the legislature even changed some of the rules in the state law so that local election officials could go to other places to try to find polling sites. That was a big problem with early voting. The law is very restrictive, and you know, the supervisors are trying to follow the law. So, you know, yes, there are changes that need to be done here in Florida. Will it happen? Yeah, I don't think so.
Your optimism is overwhelming.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the results, and let's talk about it. It was a huge turnout.
Okay.
Hundreds of thousands of voters.
Yes.
What was your takeaway from what you saw first in South Florida on Election Day?
You know, my first impression and the first takeaway I got was that about turnout. You know, I think it was marvelous that people actually took this election seriously. There was a drumbeat in the media and in the national punditry. It basically said, well, you know, particularly on the Democratic side, you know, black folk, young people, women, seniors, you know, they're kind of disappointed with the president. He wasn't progressive enough, he wasn't liberal enough, he didn't get things done. Surprise, surprise. These folk came out in droves, not only here in Florida, but across the country. And they catapulted the president back into office. Another group that, you know, was kind of maligned as not being all that enthusiastic was the Latino vote. Guess what? The Latino vote came out, and came out overwhelmingly Democratic. So, you know, that was my takeaway. I mean, I didn't think that that those voting blocks were that depressed, but you know, after a while I started thinking, well, maybe they're not going to come out that as much. And you know, the Republicans were energized. I mean, the Republican base that came out to support Mitt Romney came out, but they were overwhelmed.
What is the bigger picture here now statewide, considering everything that happened, not just locally, but across Florida? It seemed to be a pretty good time to be a Democrat over the past couple of weeks, and maybe not such a good time to be a Republican. What do you think the next few years are going to look like in Tallahassee, and how that translates down here?
Well, I think a couple of things. You're right, it is a good time to be a Democrat. I mean, today I'm sure there are many more Democrats walking around with their chest puffed out than, say, a month ago. But for Florida, I think it's still business as usual. The Republicans still are in control in Tallahassee. They have the majorities in both chambers of the legislature. They may not be able to run roughshod over the Democrats in Tallahassee like they used to, because the numbers of Democrats have increased to the point where there are no longer supermajorities in the legislature for the Republicans. So it's kind of a brand new day up there, but I think you're going to see a lot of the same old stuff. Rick Scott is still the governor. Rick Scott still has problems with Obamacare, and he's already said that, you know, he's not going to implement parts of the law, even though the U.S. Supreme Court has validated the president's health care. The president won re-election. I don't know what other rationale you can come up with to, you know, just disobey the law, but, you know, our governor is still fighting it. All I can say is that you won't see, you know, as far as the Republican majority in Tallahassee, it's still business as usual. You won't see that much change, but there'll be some subtle changes because they won't be able to get away with as much stuff as they had in previous years.
And what about the future for South Floridians with regard to President Obama's going to be here for 4 more years? What do you think are some of the initiatives that he's going to try to push through that will affect our lives, whether it's alternative means of energy or healthcare, as we talked about, immigration?
Well, the president said that he will continue the call for investment of public funds into things like infrastructure and education, and South Florida, like other parts of the country, will see the benefits of that. The immigration issue, I think, will come up, and I think that will be huge. And who knows? You noticed in the president's acceptance speech for his re-election, he mentioned, maybe not Florida by name, but he mentioned the voting problems. So maybe there'll be some federal fix, at least proposed or discussed in the new administration, that might help South Florida get its election act together.
But it's much more interesting this way. It gives us stuff to talk about. We're nationally relevant.
I've always said being a journalist in Florida is I mean, you can't find any better place in the United States to be a journalist. It might be a hard place to live, but it's a great place to be a journalist. I mean, there's always something going on.
And sometimes we even get HBO movies based on our elections too.
Yeah,
so that happens as well.
Yeah.
It's always great to have you here. We'll have you back again soon, all right?
Thank you much.
All right, he's Doug Lyons. When we come back, push CPR, what it is, how you can do it, and how it can help save lives. But first, a preview of some local concerts coming up across the next few weeks. 80s rocker Taylor Dane brings her collection of hits, including Tell It to My Heart, Love Will Lead You Back, and I'll Be Your Shelter, to the Bank United Center in Coral Gables on Saturday, November 17th at 7:30. It's part of the Legends of the 80s concert series. Lisa, and Tiffany are also scheduled to appear. The Material Girl has some new material as well as all those classics. Madonna brings her show to the American Airlines Arena for 2 nights, November 19th and the 20th at 8 p.m. The tentative set list includes Papa Don't Preach, Express Yourself, Open Your Heart, and of course, Like a Virgin. Pearl Jam frontman Eddie Vedder brings his solo act to the Broward Center for the Performing Arts on Friday, November 30th and Saturday, December 1st. You're going to hear a good amount of Pearl Jam hits, some covers, and Eddie might even break out his ukulele. And Scott Weiland, former frontman for the Stone Temple Pilots, will ooze his charisma all over the Ricochet Bar and Lounge in Miami on December 2nd for an intimate show in front of a couple hundred people. Scott's done everything from hard rock to a Christmas album, so the show figures to be eclectic.